Let us pray. Teach me, O Lord, that I may teach the precious things that you share, and give meaning to my words that they may reach the hidden depths of all our hearts. Amen. Okay, well, let's step into the Wayback Machine and set the date to 1973. You're all familiar with the Wayback Machine, aren't you? The Rocky and Bullwinkle show? Mr. Peabody and Sherman? Come on. Somebody. You know about it. Thank you very much. Oh, okay. Well, for those who don't, the Wayback Machine was a segment in the Rocky and Bullwinkle cartoon. And Mr. Peabody and his assistant Sherman would use the Wayback Machine to go back to events in history so they could witness them, participate in them, and more often than not, alter famous events in history. So let's go back to 1973 and to the movie Godspell. One of my favorite songs from that movie was a catchy little tune called Day by Day. And it goes something like this, and if people recognize it, feel free to just jump right in. Day by day, day by day, oh dear Lord, three things I pray: to see thee more clearly, love thee more dearly, follow thee more nearly, day by day. Thank you. This is the theme that I hear in today's gospel reading. And it's what I'll be talking about this morning. Now, in our gospel, in the brief encounter with Christ, we see how he ministered to his disciples. He, as the song said, calls us to see him more clearly, love him more dearly, and follow him more nearly, day by day. Now, there's a story told of a little budgie named Chirpy. Chirpy lived in a rather dirty cage. His owner decided that she would clean Chirpy's cage. And while vacuuming out the cage, the phone rang. And it startled the owner. And in the split second that she took to look around to the phone, she sucked up Chirpy into the vacuum. Poor Chirpy. Quickly, the owner took the vacuum apart and found Chirpy covered in dust and dirt, but alive. So she quickly took Chirpy into the bathroom, ran him under the water, and got all the dirt off, and thought, well, Chirpy might get pneumonia if I leave him all wet. So she grabbed her hairdryer, turned it on hot, and blew it at Chirpy. It's said that Chirpy never fully recovered from that ordeal. To this very day. But Chirpy has not blinked since. He sits on his perch, looking straight ahead, and with his poor little eyes bugging out. Let's review the lives of our disciples, of the disciples, from Palm Sunday through to this week's Gospel. On Palm Sunday, we saw Jesus riding into Jerusalem in great fanfare and jubilation. The people of Jerusalem were welcoming Christ as they would welcome a king of the Jews. We experienced a very moving supper in the upper room where Jesus announced that he would be delivered into the hands of his enemies by one of his friends. And he would be betrayed 3 times by Peter. We went to the heart-wrenching scene in the Garden of Gethsemane where Christ wrestled with his humanity and prayed, "Not my will, but yours be done." Then he was taken, and we remember Good Friday and his trial and crucifixion and death, which we reenacted right here 2 weeks ago. We move then to the glory of Christ's resurrection on Easter Sunday and his defeat of death. The disciples then were holed up in the same upper room as the Last Supper, in fear of the authorities. Jesus appeared to Mary at the tomb, to others on the road to Emmaus, to the disciples in the upper room, and the last to Thomas. To say the least, there was a roller coaster of emotions swirling around in the heads of the disciples as a result of these events. Victory, closeness, disbelief, fatigue, depression, fear, betrayal, as well as relief and love. Now, I wouldn't have been surprised if they, like Chirpy, spent a few days just sitting, staring straight ahead, trying to sort out exactly what happened. It's been my experience that if you're good at a job or you've spent a long time at it, in the absence of any other work, you will most likely go back to what you did. Well, Peter and his disciples were a prime example of that concept. In the absence of anything else to do, they went back to what they knew best, fishing. So it's not surprising that in today's gospel, Peter declares, "I'm going fishing." And so he and 7 other disciples ran out to the Sea of Tiberias and dropped their nets to do some serious fishing. Now, Brother Mark Brown, on April the 9th, 2010, posted the following paraphrase of John chapter 1, verses 1 to 14 on the Society of St. John the Evangelist website. Great website, I must say. Great website. And he says, "The Sea of Tiberias, also known as the Sea of Galilee, is actually well below sea level. So the heat in warm weather can be really oppressive. The outcroppings of black basalt along the northern shore just keep on baking the landscape through the night. It's not surprising that Peter would be stripped down to the minimum required by Jewish modesty. They're probably all in their hot weather work clothes that Peter immediately covers himself when he realizes the Lord is near may remind us of someone else. Adam and Eve hid their nakedness when they heard the Lord in the garden. Peter, too, is deeply ashamed. Those 3 denials are seared into his heart forever. And yet, in spite of his guilt, in spite of his fear, he makes his way as fast as he can to the Lord. And we can imagine him in his confusion, thrashing through the shallow water, getting his clothes on and stumbling over rough stones. He knows his guilt, but he also knows his Lord. A cloud of despondency has hovered over the sea. The disciples are tormented by the coulda, woulda, shouldas of those terrible days in Jerusalem. And they can't even get fish. Grief, shame, and a sense of utter failure pervade the atmosphere. And they're probably all, like Peter, feeling utterly exposed to their despondency, utterly stripped down, totally vulnerable. And our risen Lord's response? Let's have breakfast. It's okay. Come and eat. I've already got a good fire going. Bring some of those fish that you just caught. It's okay. Don't bother to dress up. I've seen you with your shirts off before. Come as you are. The bread is already toasting, and I think I even have a little wine here somewhere. It's okay. Come on. You must be hungry. You must be thirsty. Now, you've heard me talk about love over the past few months. But in this scene, our risen Lord has some healing to do. The people who will be entrusted to build his church needed to be refocused. After the events we've just reviewed, they're suffering from shell shock, and we would and He will love them back to mental health and focus. This is where our song, Day by Day, comes into play. To see Thee more clearly. Verse 4 of the Gospel reading says, just after daybreak, Jesus stood on the beach, but the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. What did Jesus do to reveal Himself to His disciples? As He had done many times in the past, He provided for them. He told them where the fish were. He gave them direction. And that's what He does for us. That we might see Him more clearly. And how does He direct us? Through prayer. Through reading His Word in the Bible. And through listening to the Holy Spirit. His disciples were not ready to begin their ministries. They were still trying to sort out what happened to them in the past few weeks. But like His disciples, we must remain patient, to listen and discern and wait. And as with the disciples, we will readily recognize Him. The next line of the song, love Thee more dearly. The love Jesus lavishes on His friends in this scene on the shore demonstrates to us how much Jesus loves each of us. He has provided breakfast for them. He's set a fire. He's asked them to bring some fish, which they caught with His help. And He had bread already baked for them. Now we can take comfort in this scene for many reasons. Christ will provide for each of us, just as He provided for His friends. No matter what our contribution to His kingdom is, He did not differentiate between His disciples. John recognized Him first. Peter reached Him first. The rest of the disciples toiled to bring the fish ashore, but they all received their fill of breakfast and of Christ. Christ's love for us is not qualified by position, power, or work. His love is for all of us who simply love Him. Our next line of the song is, follow Him more nearly. Now, the interaction between Jesus and Peter has been interpreted as being a reestablishment of Peter's position as the leader of the new Christian church. After Jesus' trial and Peter's predicted denial of Christ, Jesus needed to emphasize to Peter and the rest of the disciples that despite what went on, Peter's position with Christ and the future church hadn't changed. But Jesus is also saying to all in attendance, here's what I need you to do. Follow my example. Feed my lambs. Defend the weak, the young, the sick, the marginalized, those who are unable to provide for themselves. Tend my sheep. Even the strong, the adults, need food, spiritual food, food that will sustain and mature with faith when their motives are questioned and when they're being persecuted for their faith. Tend my sheep. Teach, lead, and protect the flock. Provide opportunities to learn and gain maturity for the flock. As the source of all love, it was vital for Jesus to hear Peter say that he loved him. Just as it is vital for Jesus to hear each of us tell him we love him. So often we go through our day-to-day routines on autopilot, not always thinking about what we're doing or what we're saying. But sometimes it's good just to say, Jesus, I love you. The Lord's lesson to us this morning is that the questions he asked Peter, he's asking of each one of us. He's asking to you. Hazel, do you love me? He says. Feed my lambs. Colin, do you love me? Tend my sheep. Rick, do you love me? Feed my sheep. So I put it to all of you. Jesus is asking you right now, do you love me? And we respond, I love you, Lord. Again, he's asking, do you love me?